Hello. Welcome to season 11 of Selling the Couch. I hope you're doing well. Before we jump into today's podcast session, just wanted to take a moment to say thank you for taking the time to listen to this podcast. As I just shared, 11 years of doing a podcast is an incredibly long amount of time. I started STC just 3 years after I got licensed as a psychologist. I was still in my early 30s, and being able to grow a podcast and build it here over the past 11 years, even as I've gone from my early 30s to almost now mid 40s, it feels unreal. It wasn't exactly a career path that I imagined, but in many ways I would have never expected this, but I wouldn't change anything. I've learned so much about myself, and I'm so thankful that I get to serve our field through this medium. And I'm thankful to each of you for taking the time to listen, for the sweet notes that you've sent. For somebody that's a little bit more introverted, which I think most of us as clinicians are, trying to do something like this that is so public facing feels still a little bit nerve-wracking, but I do feel like slowly I am getting better with it. And I hope, these sessions more than anything have encouraged you on your clinical journey and on your career path, whether that is doing traditional private practice or expanding beyond the clinical room into other things like book writing and podcasting and courses and speaking and all of the neat opportunities that we get to do as clinicians that I know I never quite considered, when I was going through grad school. I was thinking about even the session for this, or this session, and even the topic for this first episode. And I thought, as we're starting 2026, the new year, and if you're listening to this way down the line, ignore that part. But, I know that many of us are thinking about one of two things. Either how do we further optimize our private practices, or how do we diversify beyond just clinical work to both grow our impact as well as our income beyond the clinical room. Specifically today, we're talking about online courses and this idea of how to AI-proof your current online course if you already have one out there, or your future online course. If you have an idea that's been swimming around in your head and you're like, Mel, I really worry about AI, and I worry that it's going to make my course non-existent or not even needed because AI can, zip up a whole bunch of information together. And I, just to be completely transparent, I had that very same fear, especially over the past couple of months as AI and all of these LLMs like ChatGPT go from just becoming this thing of like, what is this thing, to people using it more and more. In fact, I saw something around I think something like 66% of people here in the US are using ChatGPT in some form or another. And I just thought that's so fascinating how such a nascent technology is getting adopted at such a faster rate. And I even saw this interesting stat that the adoption, I think of, I believe 1 billion users at ChatGPT has happened at a faster rate than the adoption of email, or even the number of users, a billion users on TikTok. It's happening very fast. I think as course creators, I had a lot of these fears, and what I have come to realize is I don't think online courses are going anywhere. Specifically, I don't think niched online courses where you are presenting as an expert in a certain topic are going anywhere. I think what is leaving, and I actually think this is going to be kind of a blessing in disguise, is those courses that are very broad and or where somebody goes into a niche because they see it as a money-making opportunity, and then they quickly leave the niche. So they don't have a real desire to sort of plant a flag and build credibility and trust in a certain niche. So the question we're really answering today is, how do we future-proof our online courses in a world where AI is creating faster than ever and attention is shrinking by the day? Uh, AI is changing the game, but it doesn't have to take your seat as a therapist at the table. What I specifically wanted to speak about is three areas that you may want to consider in terms of what I call like AI proofing your online course. So the first one is sustainable community. The second one is blue ocean positioning. And the third is meaningful gamification. We'll kind of dive deep into each of those, but I wanted to give those at a high level because I know sometimes like listening to episodes like this that are a little bit more meaty, you can be like, oh my gosh, where did, where am I with all of this? So just even a flashback to my own podcasting course, which is now 11 years old. I remember first recording that course. And if you're watching this on YouTube, the production quality did not look anything like what we have now. I literally had a Logitech webcam that was like super fuzzy. I didn't have anything in my background, so it was literally a gray wall. And I wore a Batman shirt from the movie The Dark Knight. It was a little bit of a hot mess. And I remember thinking, I was naive enough where I put it out in the world. But at the same time, looking back, I was mortified of why, like, Mel, like, why didn't you get the memo that you should not record a online course for professionals in a t-shirt, specifically the Dark Knight out of all things. And so, but the interesting thing that came out of this was people weren't buying polish. They were buying one, presence, but they were also buying this sense of like trust in me. And in fact, what they saw is someone that was just like them, that wanted them to succeed. And so that itself was like really encouraging. And the reality is AI is brilliant at scale, but it is terrible at human nuance, emotional safety, and lived insight, all of which we as clinicians excel at. So the three areas that I want us to specifically focus on, or I'd love for us to focus on today, is again, sustainable community, blue ocean positioning, and meaningful gamification. So let's start with sustainable community. And I even said sustainable community is greater than temporary launch hype. So there's kind of two ways, and I'll contrast these a little bit. This is, I borrowed this idea from the book Anti-Fragile by Nassim Taleb. So anti-fragile systems and businesses get stronger in periods of volatility, whereas fragile businesses and systems break down when there are periods of volatility. And so the fragile way, I think, of thinking about courses is what many of us feel like we have been exposed to, and many of us maybe have even done, which is these big launches, these massive adrenaline spikes, and then this slow drip to burnout, because it just feels like you're just going here and then up and then straight back down. Now, the anti-fragile way is focus on who you're gathering, not just what you're launching. In other words, think about what type of person am I building this course for, and how can I walk with them long term? So underneath that, there is this assumption that you are, in many ways, I think one of the biggest shifts that's happening with online courses is people don't want just content. They want a community either of like-minded people and or you and I as experts in whatever areas that we're creating our courses in, some level of access and connection to us. So one natural tendency when we mention community is like, okay, let's set up a Facebook group or a Slack channel or any of that. And in fact, what I would encourage you more than anything is don't think of it as just like a medium, but actually ask some bigger questions. So one is, what medium makes the most sense for my ideal course student? And how do I how do I build that sense of community and camaraderie in a way that's also sustainable for me as a course creator? That second question is, I think, one that all of us should be asking, because most of us as clinicians, we're very heart-centered people, and the tendency is we give too much of ourselves away in creating these communities. It's honestly a mistake that I've made several times with STC. I feel like I've had to learn this the hard way, because the reality is you can sustain those communities and do things for a period of time, but over time it leads to burnout. And so the bigger question I've been asking again is, how do I build community into my course and even my offerings, but in a way that's sustainable for my students, that's engaging, that makes my students feel connected, but also is sustainable for me. You've been hearing sort of the invitations here on the podcast for Haven, our new course community, our new community for therapists going from clinical to online income, specifically focused on courses and YouTube and public speaking and writing and podcasting. And one of the things that I've thought a lot about in creating that community is, again, my goal by 2026 is to have STC sort of confined to 2 days a week, from 4 days to 2 days. The other 2 days, I want to focus on Quiet Builder, some of the golf executive coaching stuff that I want to do. And so I thought long and hard of, do I want to run a Facebook group? And I quickly decided I didn't want to. I thought about communities like Circle, but we didn't have the best experience running a Circle community with STC Elite, our course mastermind, that we sunsetted here in December, and so that we could focus all our energy on Haven. But I ultimately decided on Voxer, because we had been doing Voxer channels for about 4 years for that mastermind, and colleagues loved it because, one, you didn't have to get on social media. You didn't have to, and then get that whole dopamine hit, distraction, all of that stuff. The other piece of it was a practical thing. You could leave a voice memo, like, i.e., if you were just taking a walk and you wanted to respond to folks, or if you just got done with the workout, which is what I often do in the mornings, and then I will message and respond to Voxer messages. So that felt a lot more sustainable for me, just given the season of life that I'm in, again, as a dad with a young daughter, also entering a season of caregiving for parents. I just didn't have I wanted to be so mindful of the mental energy that it takes to manage a community and whatever that looks like for me. And the other piece of Haven, which I started thinking long and hard, which we didn't actually do in STC Elite, because I started leaning into this community of, there's so many opportunities for like digital interaction, right? Voxer, and even if you get on Zoom, like one of the things with Haven is we regularly meet, right? Either through accelerators or office hours or times to just work block and get stuff done. And that's nice because we meet on Zoom, but we started really thinking about what would it be like to actually meet up in person. And now the tension I had was, I just don't think I have the bandwidth. I also don't think it's my gifting to run conferences and all of that stuff. So I just thought, why not we meet up at 2 different conferences every year? It's completely optional for Haven members, but we'll grab a nice meal together. We'll hang out. We'll get to know each other as friends. And ultimately what I was thinking is, how do we make Haven not just a product, but a real sense of like, these are my people. And I felt like one of the best ways to do that is actually to gather in person. So all that to say, start to really think about what sustainable community looks like for you. And again, I would just like double tap on the part about make sure this is sustainable for you as a person, as the creator. Second thing I wanted to talk about was blue ocean positioning. And so this idea of blue ocean, it comes from one of my most favorite business books. I definitely recommend every clinician read this, which is called Blue Ocean Strategy. And so this was a research done, and they looked at a whole bunch of different niches and industries. And basically a blue ocean is an area or a product or a service where it is an uncontested marketplace. A red ocean, by contrast, is where there is lots of competition and you're offering, whether it's a product or a service or anything like that, is just one option among other options. And so, in other words, as you're thinking about either your current course or your future one, instead of shouting in a crowded marketplace, build your own category. So, example, one of our colleagues, shout out to Katie Lear, built a Dungeons and Dragons leadership course for teens and tweens, many of who are neurodivergent. In other words, that is a very hard model to replicate, and because it is so unique, and you're combining things from disparate industries, and it just makes it like either, as somebody who's considering it, either it is the option or it's no option at all. One thing I've realized, even with Blue Ocean's positioning, I know many of us are therapists, but many of us are also quai builders. What I found is quai builders go deep into specificity, not to limit reach, but to signal resonance. I.e., we are not trying to build our course to cater to everyone, but we're trying to cater to a very specific person in a very specific situation. AI can replicate knowledge. It can't replace lived empathy and uniquely integrated modalities. So if any part of you is like, Mel, I cannot create a course, please remember that. I think so many of us, because we are in the arena of doing therapy and building these certain niches, we don't see ourselves as course creators. But the reality is we have very specific knowledge. And Naval Ravikant, who is an investor in a whole bunch of early startups, has an excellent book called The Almanac of Naval Ravikant. Well, it's actually somebody else wrote it, but it's based on sort of his insights. And one of the ideas in that is, how specific knowledge is going to be the great multiplier as sort of society evolves. And fortunately for us as clinicians, many of us have established niches and trainings and all of that stuff. And when you combine all of that, you become essentially a blue ocean. I think one question just to ask yourself is, how can I take something that feels niche and make it feel like a calling, something that I'm meant to do? And this is something, even for me on the quai builder side, I'm navigating. If you've heard some recent episodes of the podcast, you may know that I started taking weekly golf lessons at the age of 43. Golf is something I've been wanting to learn since the third grade, and just financially didn't make sense for our family. Honestly, there weren't a lot of opportunities growing up, especially in Texas, for golf. And so, in the 90s, right? And 2000s. And so one thing I'm really thinking about for myself is what is my blue ocean with all of this, right? How do I create an offer that is so unique that it really becomes essentially a blue ocean opportunity? And the thing that I'm thinking a lot about is, how do I essentially combine golf with coaching, with brain spotting, working with people that are in high pressure environments where they need their nervous system to remain calm, and how do I use golf as a vehicle in order to do that, and with a combo of brain spotting. So just remember, the biggest thing is, in a sea of noise, clarity is an unfair advantage. The third thing is meaningful gamification. So many of us, when we think about gamification, we either think of I have to be an entertainer. But the thing I would say is, meaningful gamification is way better than shiny bonuses. So forget points, motivation, dopamine traps, any of that stuff. Real motivation, progress towards something that matters for your core students. So you can use story arcs or reflective journaling or community milestones that you hit for certain, when you hit a certain member. I think the best question, as I was, scripting for this episode, ask yourself this question: how can I help my students become someone new by the end of this experience? Not in a way like they're going to go through my course, but and become a new person, but more, how do I create a totality of experience where someone going through this is going to be transformed through community, through the content, through the calls, through meetups, all of that kind of stuff. Another little fun thing to just ask yourself: if the student only had 10 minutes a week, how could I help them succeed? That's a great question, I think, to just ask yourself. Even for me, like, I think with AI, one of the biggest realizations that I've had is, content by itself, i.e. just a online course that you sell, while you can have still some success with that, I think with AI and all these things that are happening, I think the sustained success will actually be from with an emphasis on community and meaningful connection. So that's even why, we decided to make a really hard call to shut down both our podcasting course as well as our course mastermind. Those were our two biggest products, and integrate them all into Haven, which is my goal is to really focus on community and to build what I call a soul-aligned opportunity for clinicians that want to make this transition from clinical work to online income and impact. For me, I think, in many ways, I feel like I'm a crash test dummy for a lot of this stuff, but I wanted, even as I was building Haven, we learned so much with both the podcasting course, Healthcasters, and then with our mastermind. And one of the biggest things is, how do we create opportunities of deep learning? By and large, everybody, that has gone through our online course mastermind has had a very positive experience from it. And we've learned so much, I think, in building that mastermind over the past 4 years. And now I'm so excited to take all those learnings and put them into Haven. I think just kind of the encouragement I would share is, whether you're just launching or rethinking your online course, you don't need to fight algorithms and win. You just need to stay human. And how do you create that human inflection and and connection even throughout your whole student's online course experience? As we wrap up, I know last month we hosted a free workshop that I think would be a wonderful supplement to this podcast episode. It is called How to AI-Proof Your Online Course Idea as a Therapist. And we dove deeper into this with a little bit longer of a workshop. If that's something that you're interested in, the replay is still available. You can sign up for it at sellingthecouch.com/AI webinar. And we talked about, how to position your course as a blue ocean instead of in a saturated space, how to use gamification that's meaningful and non-manipulative, and how to build community, real community around your work so that it lasts. I was joined by my head of operations, and we had a wonderful chat. She's had 15 years in the online business space, works with a lot of creators who have courses and are doing launches. So was just a wealth of knowledge. So I think you're really going to enjoy that workshop. So definitely encourage you to check out the replay over at sellingthecouch.com/AI webinar. And then as we wrap up, I just wanted to mainly just send you a gentle invitation. Haven is now open for enrollment. Again, if you missed it, it's our brand new community for therapists who want to grow their online presence through courses, podcasting, YouTube, writing, and speaking. And we've built Haven not around hustle culture or grind or any of those things, but more around calmness, sustainability. How do we focus on deep connection with one another so that we can support the work that we are meant to do in the world? And it's really meant for therapists that are navigating sort of multiple identities. So private practice, and I want to do this online thing. I am caregiving. I'm a parent, and I want to do this online thing. Specifically within Haven, we have 4 accelerators a year. The first accelerator kicks off on January 13th, 2026. It's a Tuesday. The theme is AI-Proof Your Online Course Ideas. So you'll get to collaborate live with our team, with other colleagues that are navigating this journey, You'll get to workshop your course idea through these 3 frameworks, through gamification, blue ocean positioning, community. What does all of that look like for your existing or your future online course? You'll get feedback from our team, from colleagues on all of that stuff. And then the most important part is it's not a bunch of lecture. We actually do meaningful work so that at the end of every workshop, it's 3 weeks long, and you actually walk out of there with like a really good idea of like how to AI proof your future or your current online course. The accelerator is included when you join Haven, and literally it's $497. Gives you 3 weeks of access, gives you Voxer channel, lots of support over 3 weeks. It's a very low lift. And if you've been like, hey, I'm toying with this online course idea for a long time, Mel, or I've already got one and I just want to like AI proof it a little bit more, I definitely encourage you to join. It's over at sellingthecouch.com/Haven. And we are, again, running that first cohort at Tuesday, January 13th. We are putting a limit to this first cohort that comes into 50 members, just so that we can build this thoughtfully and meaningfully. I think even as Haven builds out, one of my most important things is I don't want to just have this huge community where everybody feels like a number and nobody feels connected to one another. And so that's the reason we're putting a cap on this first round, just so that we can sustainably build it. So if you followed us for a while and want to check it out, I'd love to have you. It's over again at sellingthecouch.com/Haven. And if you have any questions about Haven, please just shoot me an email. Just, put the title like interest in Haven for the email, and just please ask me a question. I'm more than happy to give you an honest answer. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.